losing friends when you become a person with disabilities, a person with chronic illnesses. The reality is you are going to lose friends. Certain relationships are going to change. Honestly, that sucks. This one's a hard one for me, and you know what? At first, I didn't really know if I wanted to tackle this subject, but I felt like I needed to because when I first started reading articles about friendships and changes in friendships due to, situations like mine, becoming a person with chronic, medical condition and medical problems, I heard a lot about friendship changes and losing friends and things like that. And at first I'm like, is that really what's gonna happen? And I honestly didn't really believe it at first, or I guess I naively just decided to ignore it. I don't really know which one, to be honest. Here's the truth. At one point, sooner or later, it happens. I think people put a lot of weight on that and, will blame themselves for it, or will be really confused or really have a lack of understanding. But here's the reality. Everyone goes through phases and changes, that it be, becoming a parent, owning a house, any big life change, getting married, things like that, will automatically bring some type of change within your world. And that affects your friends too. For a couple like us who don't have kids, don't plan on having kids, our relationship with friends that have kids obviously has changed because they can't, just hang out with us till 3 in the morning and have some drinks anymore. And that's okay. And relating that back to being a person with chronic illness, I think the big difference is that's a change they chose. As becoming parents, getting married, all those things. You choose that as a person to do those things. When you become chronically ill, it's not a choice. It's something that happens to you, and you don't have a lot of control over it. And I think it's that lack of control over your living that affects relationships the most. And I think that's what's really hard for people, because they think it's a choice to not go out tomorrow because you're too tired. They think it's a choice that, going on that walk or that hike's just not gonna work for you today. Unfortunately, it's just not. We're just trying to listen to our bodies, and we're trying to do the best we can to stay somewhat human and keep going, and do that in the least amount of pain possible. That's hard for a lot of people, especially for people who've never had to live it. I've found that friends who have either been through it themselves, have had close family members go through times of being ill, have a different understanding of things versus someone who hasn't had any major medical problems or hasn't had a close relative, family member, or friend go through it before. And the reality is, yes, I have. I've lost friends. More than that, I've had a lot of changes in relationships. They're just different now. They're just not the same. We're not as close as we used to be. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of people just don't like finding different ways to communicate. And communication is such an important part of a friendship that if you don't find new ways of being able to communicate and hang out and do these types of things without it being necessarily the same activities you used to do as friends, if that other person isn't open to changing what the relationship looks like, there's not much else to do. And I know that sucks. And yeah, sometimes it's from really close people that you don't expect. The reality is that's okay. It's really hard to say that. It's just okay to lose friends and things change, but change isn't a bad thing. Change allows growth and allows you to, reflect on where things are at and where things are going. If that friend isn't willing or open to, instead of going out to a club and going dancing, which is not something you can do anymore or you don't want to do anymore, and instead, go sit at a pub and have a drink instead, at the end of the day, you're kind of doing the same thing. You're going out to drink and hang out. Just one of them has a lot of dancing and lights and running around, and one has a lot less of those things. And if they're not okay with that, then that's okay. And you know what? Maybe it's just time, you know? Friends are there for a moment. Friends are there for a season, and friends are there for forever. There are different friends for all of those things. You might have thought someone was going to be there forever, and then now it might be looking like it's not. Well, maybe it's time to reevaluate what you think about that. I'm not saying that this is emotionally easy, because it really isn't. But I've come to terms with the fact that a lot of my relationships have changed over the last few years. Are they going to change as things progress again? Possibly. Are things going to get better or worse? I don't know what the future holds for some of my friendships, but I don't put expectations on them either. Things are fluid, and life is fluid, and life is crazy. Give yourself a bit of grace. You gotta let some stuff go. You can't hold it all in. And if you're having a hard time, a really hard time trying to, you know, navigate this crazy world that is friendships and chronic illness and disability, and you really need someone to talk to, find yourself a counselor, a psychologist, psychiatrist, not sure which one's the right one anymore, someone outside of your friend group and family and friends that has a different perspective and can, you know, help you work through some of those things. I did, and it helped me out a lot. Getting that counseling to sit down and really, you know, evaluate where I was at and how things were going, and whether or not those friendships made sense for me long term. Were we even friends for the right reasons? Right? All these questions that you may have never asked yourself. It might be time to ask yourself those things. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. If you're struggling to figure out what friendship really is for you, what you want friendship to look like for you in the future, be honest with what you need and what you need from your friends. For those of your friends that are still around, maybe it's time to let them know what you need from them. You know, for the ones that have maybe gone away, maybe it's time to reconnect and, you know, be honest with them and, you know, put everything on the table and see how they react. It's time to maybe just open up some communication and see how they take it. And if it doesn't go well, maybe it's just time to go your separate ways. But either way, you're in control and you need to make that decision. And that's something only you can do. So till next time, don't forget to slow your roll and breathe.